Then Baldad seized him and said, "One should not speak that way to a man who is not only in mourning but is also beset by many plagues. Take note, although we are quite healthy, we are not strong enough to approach him because of the foul stench, except by the use of much perfume. You there, Eliphaz, do you forget how you were when you fell ill for 2 days? Now then, let us be patient in order that we may discover his true condition. Perhaps he is emotionally disturbed. Perhaps he recalls his former prosperity and has become mentally deranged. For who would not be driven senseless and imbalanced when he is sick? But allow me to approach him, and I will determine his condition." Then Baldad, when he had arisen, approached me and said, "Are you Job?" And I said to him, "Yes." And he said, "Is your heart untroubled?" And I said to him, "My heart is not fixed on earthly concerns, since the earth and those who dwell in it are unstable. But my heart is fixed on heavenly concerns, for there is no upset in heaven." And Baldad replied and said, "We know the earth is unstable, since of course it changes from time to time. Sometimes it steers an even course and is at peace. There are also times of war. But as for heaven, we hear that it stays calm. But if you are truly sound of mind, I will ask you about something. And if you answer me sensibly regarding the first query, I will ask you about a second matter. And if you answer me calmly, it will be clear that you are not emotionally disturbed." So he said, "In whom do you hope?" And I said, "In the God who lives." And again he said to me, "Who destroyed your goods or inflicted you with these plagues?" And I said, "God." And again he replied and said, "Do you hope upon God? Then how do you reckon him to be unfair by inflicting you with all these plagues or destroy your goods? If he were to give and then take away, it would actually be better for him not to have given anything. At no time does a king dishonor his own soldier who bears arms well for him, or who will ever understand these deep things of the Lord and his wisdom. Who dares to ascribe to the Lord injustice? Answer me this, Job. And again I say to you, if you are sound of mind and have your wits about you, tell me why we see the sun on the one hand rising in the east and setting in the west, and again when we get up early we find it rising again in the east. Explain these things to me if you were the servant of God." And to all this I said, "I do have my wits about me, and my mind is sound. Why then should I not speak out the magnificent things of the Lord? Or should my mouth utterly blunder regarding the Master? Never! Who are we to be busying ourselves with heavenly matters, seeing that we are fleshly, having our lot in dust and ashes? Now then, so that you may know that my heart is sound, here is my question for you. Food enters the mouth, then water is drunk through the same mouth and sent into the same throat. But whenever the two reach the latrine, they are separated from each other. Who divides them?" And Baldad said, "I do not know." Again I replied and said to him, "If you do not understand the functions of the body, how can you understand heavenly matters?" Then Sophar replied and said, "We are not inquiring after things beyond us, but we have sought to know if you are of sound mind. And now we truly know that your intelligence has been unaffected. But what then do you wish us to do for you? Since we are traveling, we have brought along with us the physicians of our 3 kingdoms. Do you wish to be treated by them? Perhaps you will find relief." But I answered and said, "My healing and my treatment are from the Lord, who also created the physicians." While I was saying these things to them, my wife Sidis arrived in tattered garments, fleeing from the servitude of the official she served, since he had forbidden her to leave, lest the fellow king see her and seize her. While she came, she threw herself at their feet and said, weeping, "Do you remember me, Eliphaz, you and your 2 friends? What sort of person I used to be among you and how I used to dress? But now look at my debut and my attire." Then, when they had made a great lamentation and were doubly exhausted, they fell silent, so that Eliphaz seized his purple coat, tore it off, and threw it about my wife. But she began to beg them, saying, "I plead with you, order your soldiers to dig through the ruins of the house that fell on my children, so that at least their bones might be preserved as a memorial, since we cannot because of the expense. Let us see them, even if it is only their bones. Have I the womb of cattle or of a wild animal that my 10 children have died, and I have not arranged the burial of a single one of them?" And they left to dig, but I forbade it, saying, "Do not trouble yourselves in vain, for For you will not find my children, since they were taken up into heaven by the Creator, their King." Then again they answered me and said, "Who then will not say that you were demented and mad when you say, 'My children have been taken up into heaven'? Tell us the truth now." And I replied to them and said, "Lift me up so I can stand erect." And they lifted me up, supporting my arms on each side. And when I had stood up, I sang praises to the Father. And the prayer that I said to them, "Look up with your eyes to the east, and see my children crowned with the splendor of the Heavenly One." When she saw that, Sittis my wife fell to the ground worshipping and said, "Now I know that I have a memorial with the Lord. So I shall arise and return to the city and nap a while, and then refresh myself before the duties of my servitude." And when she left for the city, she went to the cowshed of her oxen, which had been confiscated by the rulers whom she served, and she lay down near a certain manger, and died in good spirits. When her domineering ruler sought her, but could not find her, he went when it was evening into the folds of the herds, and found her sprawled out dead. And all who saw cried out in an uproar of lament over her, and the sound reached through the whole city. When they rushed in to discover what had happened, they found her dead, and the living animal standing about weeping over her. So bearing her in procession, they attended her burial, locating her near the house that had collapsed on her children. And the poor of the city made a great lamentation, saying, "Look, this is Sittis, the woman of pride and splendor. She was not even considered worthy of a decent burial." So then you will find in the miscellanies the lament made for her. Eliphaz and the rest sat beside me after these things, arguing and talking big against me, saying for 27 days that I had suffered this justly due to my many sins, and that there was no hope left for me. But I vigorously remonstrated. Filled with anger, they arose to leave in rage. Then Elihu implored them, saying, "Stay here till I clarify the issue for him. You held on some time while Job boasted himself to be a just man, but I will not hold on. From the start I too made lamentation for him, remembering his former prosperity. And here he now speaks out in boastful grandeur, saying that his throne is in heaven. Listen to me now, and I will tell you about his imaginary estate." Then Elihu, inspired by Satan, spoke out against me insulting words which are written down in the miscellanies of Eliphaz. After Elihu ended his arrogant speech, the Lord, having appeared plainly to me through a hurricane and clouds, spoke, and censured Elihu, showing that the one who spoke in him was not a human but a beast. And when the Lord spoke to me through the cloud, the 4 kings also heard the voice of him who spoke. After the Lord finished speaking to me, he said to Eliphaz, "You there, Eliphaz, you and your 2 friends, why did you sin? You have not spoken truly regarding my servant Job. Arise and have him offer up sacrifices on your behalf, so that your sin might be taken away. Except for him, I would have destroyed you." So they brought me these things for sacrifice, and I took them and made an offering on their behalf, and the Lord received it favorably and forgave their sin. Then when Eliphaz, Baldad, and Zophar knew that the Lord had shown them favor regarding their sin, but had not considered Elihu worthy, Eliphaz replied and spoke up with a hymn, while the other friends and their troops sang to him in response near the altar. Eliphaz spoke in this manner: "Our sins were stripped off, and our lawlessness buried. Elihu, Elihu, the only evil one, will have no memorial among the living. His quenched lamp lost its luster, and the splendor of his lantern will flee from him into condemnation. For this is the one of darkness and not of light, and the doorkeepers of darkness shall inherit his splendor and majesty. His kingdom is gone, his throne is rotted, and the honor of his tent lies in Hades. He loved the beauty of the snake and the scales of the dragon. Its venom and poison shall be his food. He did not take to himself the Lord, nor did he fear him. But even his honored ones he provoked to anger. The Lord has forgotten him, and the holy ones abandoned him. But wrath and anger shall be his tent. He has no hope in his heart, nor peace in his body. He has the poison of asps in his tongue. Righteous is the Lord, true are his judgments. With him there is no favoritism. He will judge us all together. Behold, the Lord has come. Behold, his holy ones are prepared, while crowns lead the way with praises. Let the holy ones rejoice. Let them leap for joy in their hearts, for they have received the splendor they awaited. Gone is our sin, cleansed is our lawlessness, and the evil one Elihu has no memorial among the living. After Eliphaz ended the hymn, while all were singing in response to him and encircling the altar, we arose and entered the city, where we now make our home. And we held great festivities in the delight of the Lord. Once again I sought to do good works for the poor, and all my friends and those who had known me as a benefactor came to me, and they queried me, saying, "What do you ask of us now?" And remembering the poor again to do them good, I asked them, saying, "Let each one give me a lamb for the clothing of the poor who are naked." So then every single one brought a lamb and a gold coin, and the Lord blessed all the goods I owned, and he doubled my estate. And now, my children, behold, I am dying. Above all, do not forget the Lord. Do good to the poor. Do not overlook the helpless. Do not take to yourselves wives from strangers. Look, my children, I am dividing among you everything that is mine, so each one may have unrestricted control over his own share. And they brought forth the estate for distribution among the 7 males only, for he did not present any of the goods to the females. They were grieved and said to their father, "Our father, sir, are we not also your children? Why then did you not give us some of your goods?" But Job said to the females, "Do not be troubled, my daughters. I have not forgotten you. I have already designated for you an inheritance better than that of your 7 brothers." Then, when he had called his daughter, who was named Hemorah, he said to her, "Take the signet ring, go to the vault, and bring the 3 golden boxes, so that I may give you your inheritance." So she left and brought them back. And he opened them and brought out 3 multicolored cords, whose appearance was such that no man could describe, since they were not from earth but from heaven, shimmering with fiery sparks like the rays of the sun. And he gave each one a cord, saying, "Place these about your breast, so it may go well with you all the days of your life." Then the other daughter, named Cassia, said to him, "Father, is this the inheritance which you said was better than that of our brothers? Who has any use for these unusual cords? We cannot gain a living from them, can we?" And their father said to them, "Not only shall you gain a living from these, but these cords will lead you into the better world, to live in the heavens. Are you then ignorant, my children, of the value of these strings? The Lord considered me worthy of these in the day in which he wished to show me mercy and to rid my body of the plagues and the worms. Calling me, he furnished me with these 3 cords and said, 'Arise, gird your loins like a man. I shall question you, and you answer me.' So I took them and put them on, and immediately from that time the worms disappeared from my body, and the plagues too. And then my body got strength through the Lord, as if I actually had not suffered a thing. I also forgot the pains in my heart, and the Lord spoke to me in power, showing me things present and things to come. Now then, my children, since you have these objects, you will not have to face the enemy at all, but neither will you have worries of him in your mind, since it is a protective amulet of the Father. Rise then, gird yourselves with him before I die, in order that you may be able to see those who are coming for my soul, in order that you may marvel over the creatures of God." Thus, when the one called Hemorah arose, she wrapped around her own string, just as her father said, and took on another heart, no longer minded toward earthly things, but she spoke ecstatically in the angelic dialect, sending up a hymn to God in accordance with the hymnic style of the angels. And as she spoke ecstatically, she allowed the Spirit to be inscribed in her garment. Then Cassia bound hers and had her heart changed, so that she no longer regarded worldly things. And her mouth took on the dialect of the archons, and she praised God for the creation of the heights. So if anyone wishes to know the creation of the heavens, he will find it in the hymns of Cassia. Then the other one also, named Amalthea's horn, bound her cord, and her mouth spoke ecstatically in the dialect of those on high, since her heart also was changed, keeping aloof from worldly things. For she spoke in the dialect of the cherubim, glorifying the Master of virtues by exhibiting their splendor. And finally, whoever wishes to grasp a trace of the paternal splendor will find it written down in the prayers of Amalthea's horn.